We're recording.
Excellent. All right. Welcome, everyone. I want to welcome everyone. I'm going to tell you who I am. I am Sylvia Jacobs from Books and More with Jewish Ladies on Facebook. I want to give a warm welcome and a shout out to everyone in my group who is going to watch this later on since it's all being recorded. I want to announce, because you don't know, I'm here with Lori Young. She is a Jewish matchmaker from Seattle, Shadchan. She's a Shadchan. And I want to give her a very warm welcome. So I'm going to give her a round of applause. And I'm going to say thank you for doing this with me. This is really great. And this is a very important thing that we're doing. So I'm going to give this now to Lori Young. And Lori, I want to pose the first question to you. Who are you? Who is Lori Young? And are you a Baal Tshuva?
Okay, yes, I'm definitely a Baal Tshuva. I grew up in Anchorage, Alaska. I was born there the year before it became a state. So that was 65 years ago. And growing up in Alaska, I didn't have a lot of exposure to Yiddishkeit. So when I was 14, I had this one summer where I went to a reform camp in California, a conservative weekend in Vancouver, and an Orthodox camp in Seattle, Washington. Now, my parents were born in Seattle, so I went to this camp and I just loved the kids. The kids were, there was just so much to them. And so to make the story shorter, over my teenage years, I became more observant through the friends that I had made in Seattle. And I ended up going to Stern College and became kind of the frummy in my family, so to speak. And I have three main passions in life. Number one is taking care of my husband and my family, but my husband is a full-time job. Number two is I love doing matchmaking and dating coaching. I just love it. So when I'm not taking care of him, I am doing that. And my third passion is my Tehillim group, which is called Daily Gratitude Tehillim.com. And anybody who's interested in that, we say one psalm a day in thanks to Hashem for all the blessings he gives us. So that's Daily Gratitude Tehillim.com. And it's really a cool thing.
Wonderful, wonderful. Good to know all this. Now, tell me, will you please tell us about the matchmaking process?
Okay, so there's lots of different ways to make matches. I'm going to tell you about mine because that's the one I can speak to. So what I do is people sign up on my website for an interview. And during that interview time, I get to know them. Before I interview them, they fill out a questionnaire so I can get a lot of the basic stuff out of the way. And the questionnaire makes them dig deep into who they are and what's important to them. So when I get to know them, it's much easier to make targeted matches. Many matchmakers will just look at a profile and shoot off an idea or two or three and see what happens. I've only made one match by shooting off 3 profiles to one woman. She was a young Chabad gal, maybe 21 years old in California. And she was very cute. And she had 3 choices. She picked one, she married him. So, but all my other matches were made by really knowing one side well. And I try to get to know the other side, during the process so that I can coach them if necessary.
Wonderful. Do you travel all over the country to match people up?
I travel all over the world by Zoom.
Oh, okay. All right. Wonderful. And Zoom is a wonderful thing. It's amazing.
It is amazing. I was doing it before COVID. So, it really works for me. I work out of my office here and I've met incredible people all over the world. My last interview was a man in England. And so, yeah, I can work anywhere from here.
It's wonderful. I have the same thing. I've met so many people, so many great people through Zoom as well. I've traveled everywhere. I agree with you. Can anyone become a matchmaker if they want to be?
Well, I'm going to throw that question back at you, Sylvia. Do you think anybody can become a matchmaker?
Well, if you're throwing it at me, I would say I'm sure there's training involved and you have to learn a little bit about it. You can't just jump into it and say, I want to do it.
Okay, I would say that to become a professional matchmaker, you are 100% correct. But anybody can make a match. Many singles make matches with their friends. My own match was made through my good girlfriend, my best girlfriend in Seattle. She was setting up my husband with a cousin of mine. And she called me to check out my cousin. I said, hey, he's not religious. Why don't you set me up with him? And so he did go out with my cousin, but I kept like, nice Jewish doctor in Seattle, I'm coming to meet him. And I did. And I kept coming back to Seattle until we got engaged and married.
Wow.
Because I did not want to live in New York. I wanted to live in Seattle. So I was excited to meet somebody.
That's amazing.
Okay.
So, I lost you there.
I'm still here.
Okay, there you are. What made you decide to become a matchmaker?
So I have 3 married sons. One of the sons had a broken engagement. And I started to learn about the world of Shidduchim in New York that I did not really know about. So my son was in Truro going to school, and his broken engagement, I started to learn about profiles and the Shidduch world and saw you at Sinai. And then I looked around my own shul and I saw single people and nobody's really helping them. So I thought that maybe I could use my coaching skills. I'd become a wellness coach and then a life coach. And then I thought, well, gosh, maybe I could transform those skills into dating coaching. And my first client was a 68-year-old man in my shul. He paid me by the hour. And I looked all over the West Coast for him for a shidduch. And my profile went to the woman who became his wife. And then I helped his son, and it just snowballed from there. And then most of my clients actually are on the East Coast. So that's why I became a matchmaker, because I discovered the world of Shidduchim, which I did not really know about being here in Seattle. And I've also helped some people from Seattle get married, which has really been heartwarming.
How many people have you matched?
Over a dozen. And my dating coaching has helped people get to the chuppah as well. One exciting match was a woman who lived in Brooklyn. She was in her later 30s, and she met a guy on an app from England. And her parents were really upset because they were used to the traditional model of having a matchmaker involved. So I coached her through talking to her parents, how to date long distance. And I do have a video long distance on the internet called Long Distance Dating, which I send out to people all the time so they can learn how to do long distance dating. And I coached her through it. She's married to him now and living in London.
Wow, that's an amazing story. I'm sure you have many amazing stories. Maybe if you have time, you'll share some. How many years have you been doing matchmaking?
I started at the end of 2016, so a little over 6 years.
Wow, I must say that it seems like you've been doing it longer. I don't know why. To me.
Okay.
Is it harder to match people that are middle-aged?
I love the challenge of trying to match people who are middle-aged, but yes, when I got married, I was almost 25, and I considered myself young and dumb. Oh, you too?
Yes, 25.
So I think when you match younger people, everything is potential, especially like if they're still in school. But when you match older people, you kind of have to have your life together. There's a lot more parameters that have to match up. And I really like helping the older singles, meaning to me, anyone over 28 is of more interest to me. They're more mature. They know more of who they are and what they want. And my last 2 matches have been through my Zoom dating events that I run with Kim Solomon from Saw You at Sinai. And they both involved 40-plus-year-old women. a 45-year-old woman and a 49-year-old man in Queens, and a 47-year-old woman from Israel, and a 53-year-old divorced man in Israel. So that's been super exciting to get women in their 40s married. Like that just warms my heart, brings me joy.
Wonderful. What recommendations can you give people having a hard time in the dating area, especially when they're trying to match on apps nowadays?
Whoa. So apps can be wonderful and apps can be dangerous depending on your age and your religious level, both these things. Apps, you can meet some real horrible people on apps, dangerous people. So my advice is if you can get a reference before you meet someone in person, is to say, hey, you know, I'm just really careful about people I meet online. If you can't verify them like from LinkedIn or Facebook, you don't have a sense of that you really know who they are, ask for their rabbi's phone number. Say, I'm not gonna ask them a million questions. I just want to know you are who you are. You can also look up their age on Been Verified. I have a subscription. I look up all my people, you know, who, if I need to, I will look up the age of people. And also, if you're on the apps, there's the, what do they call it? Analysis paralysis. You have too many choices. No, it's a paradox of choice, paradox of choice. People have so many choices today, it's hard to make a decision. Also, if you're on an app, don't keep texting forever. You got to get that phone call within a few days of matching, because texting is fantasy in dating. It's really fantasy. You got to get on the phone and then you got to meet in person.
That makes good sense. Yes. Can you recommend any good books on matchmaking?
Okay, here we go. This is a long answer. Are you ready for this, Sylvia? Because I have 4 books.
Yes, yes.
My favorite. Okay.
Show us the books if you have them.
What? Yes, I have them right here. Absolutely.
Beautiful. Show us the books.
Okay, so what do I start with? Marry Him by Lori Gottlieb. It's called Marry Him, The Case for Settling for Mr. Good Enough. Now, actually, my son, the one with the broken engagement, recommended this book to me. So men can read this too. But there's an article by Lori Gottlieb in the Atlantic. You can find the article online, and if that speaks to you, then get the book. This is the book that I've recommended so many times for women to get focused on what's really important. It's just her journey. So she's when she wrote this book, she was like 37, 38. She had a baby on her own. And that's when she had the baby. And she's writing this as a 40-year-old. She's conservative, traditional Jewish woman. And she meets matchmakers and she meets dating coaches and she pays tons of money to some matchmakers, you know, these dating services. And she herself is like 5'1", 5'2". She wants a guy who's 6 feet tall. So some people go and set her straight, you know, like, yes, you want a guy who's 6 feet tall, but, you know, maybe there's a guy who would interest you who's not 6 feet tall. Because if you think of the Jewish men, how many Jewish men are 6 feet tall? You know, like when you start trying to, so she made her list and her list like had 100 things on it. So what she was looking for didn't really exist, or she hadn't met him yet. Okay, so she actually, just a spoiler from the book, she's not married to this day, but a spoiler from the book is she does meet a guy who makes her laugh, and he's probably 5'6". And he makes her laugh, and you're like plotting for her to marry him, like, yes, you found your guy. And he moves to another city and she doesn't follow him. She doesn't go with him. So that was kind of the sad part of the book, but you can learn so much from reading this book. Okay, so that's Marry Him. I recommend it to everybody just because it's a good read and you can definitely take away some pearls. Okay, this book is for the religious people. especially the younger religious people, but it's called Shidduch Secrets, and I think anybody can learn from it. It's an Artscroll book. It is my favorite for the Orthodox world. Lots of stories, and I'm just going to give you an example of one case. So they call it the smorgasbord syndrome. So I'm going to give you an example. There was a guy in this book, and he wants a woman. They can't figure out why he's not married yet. Okay, so he wants a woman who's communally oriented like his mother, who is laid back like and artistic like his sister, and gets dinner on the table by 6 o'clock like his aunt. Okay, and the dating coach says to him, you're probably not going to find all these traits in one person. Somebody who's working out in the community, has dinner ready on time, but yet's laid back and creative and artistic, because his mother's personality was kind of bossy and he didn't like his mother's personality. But he wasn't going to find someone, the dating coach says, that had all these different traits. He's looking for a unicorn, someone who really didn't exist. So that's kind of the ideas you learn from Shidduch Secrets. Amazing book. Dr. Rabbi Jack Cohen is a very popular lecturer on TorahAnytime.com. He has a whole Shidduch business going on. And I was listening to all of his lectures on Torah Anytime. This was like 3 years ago. And he was mamish reading from this book. So that's how even Dr. Rabbi Jack Cohen loves this book. Have him at hello. I recommend to all women who don't get a second date. Okay, so this book is, in fact, all of the authors of these books are Jewish. Rachel Greenwald, have him at hello. She does 1,000 exit surveys with men of why they didn't call women back for a second date. And she categorized them. She used her MBA focus on how to put people into categories. And she found out, the number one reason why men don't call women back for a second date, because they are leading. She calls it the boss lady. Like, they can't wait for the guy to get the taxi. So she's out there trying to get the taxi. She's the one who likes, okay, let's get the check and let's go out for a walk now. Like, she's trying to lead the date. She's not letting the man lead. And the second, and she gives stories and she teaches how to stop being that person, to modulate your characteristics so that it's more softer, feminine. In this way, if you are the boss lady, you're a high-powered woman at work, how to tone yourself down so that the man can connect with you. Not to change you, but to bring out your characteristics in a way that's more connecting. The second one is the blahs. You're just too nice, too boring, too agreeable. So she says you got to become sugar and spice. You have your pleasant company, but you're a little bit interesting. And she gives ideas on how to be interesting and how to ask interesting questions. She also has a section in there why women don't want to go out with a guy on a second date, but it's basically focused on the women. Great book. Okay, I think we've been through it. Now, the last one. This is a newer book, How to Not Die Alone, by Logan Ury. And Logan Ury is a really popular speaker, and she's writing another book now, and she studied with Dan Ariely, who's a behavior specialist. How to Not Die Alone. The reason the only thing I don't like about the book, it's a little woke. So she talks about relationships that are not approved by the Torah, but her research, that it's all research based, is really incredibly good. So it is worth reading, and I'm going to just give you the 3 things from that book, and then we're almost done. She talks about the 3 different kinds of people who are dating: the romanticizer, the maximizer, and the hesitator. So the romanticizer believes they are so influenced by American society that they are going to look across the room and see the perfect person and just know that's the person. That they really live by Disney fantasy and romance novels. Romance novels are probably the biggest deterrent for women to learn how to be in a real relationship, because they read romance novels and they really think that some guy out there is just like the guy in the romance novel. Okay, not going to happen. How to not die alone. So she teaches the maximizer. Let's go to the maximizer. The maximizer is someone who always thinks there's somebody 5% better out there. Yes, they like the person in front of them. Yes, they tick off most of the boxes, but there might be something better. So they don't settle down and really invest in creating a relationship, because she really believes relationships don't happen. They're built brick by brick, layer by layer, conversation by conversation. It's what I tell my people, date by date. You have to build it. I mean, even in the Torah, it always tells you that the love comes after the marriage, you know, because the shared experiences is what builds the relationship, not looking across the room and falling in love. Though it can happen that you do see a person across the room. One of my husband's cousin, he saw a girl at Sheva Brachas and he said, that's the girl I'm going to marry. And he did. He did. Now, she was a year older than him. He had to chase her for 2 years, but eventually he wore her down and he did marry her. She was gorgeous, by the way, but okay. So let's see. And then there is the hesitator. The hesitator is not dating yet because they either want to lose weight, they want to get a better job, they want to move maybe to another city. So they're waiting until conditions are perfect. So she addresses all these people in how to date more effectively. And I think she does a great job, really. So that's why I'm saying that people can read these books and not need a dating coach, or take the ideas they learned from these books and take them to the dating coach and say, I think I have a problem. I think I'm a maximizer. I think I don't know how to invest in one person at a time. What can I do? But maybe from the books, they can learn enough that they can move forward. Also, I would give the one last thing is, if you don't want to hire a dating coach, ask your friend, why am I not married yet? You know, what do you think I am? What makes me sparkle, and what could make me sparkle more? So that's pretty much where I'm at. These are the books that I love. I learned so much from them, and that's why I recommend them to my clients.
Thank you. Thank you so much. These books sound very interesting, and thank you for telling us about these books. I myself want to go to read all these books. I have all the titles and I'm going to look to find them. They sound really fascinating. Each book is different and it contains so much information. It's just fascinating. I haven't read them, but I recommend them too because they sound excellent. And I know I have a friend of mine who told me about these books too. Just as I recommended, she saw the post up in my group. They said these books are excellent. So yeah,
we are the people of the book. We love books.
Yes,
we love information.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you. Okay, now, so that was the conclusion of the first half of our Zoom. Now we're going to go into the second half of our Zoom, where Lori's going to be taking questions from the participants. So if you have a question, raise your hand or call out one at a time. Be patient, and Lori will try to get to as many questions as possible. So whoever wants to start off, let us know. Okay, let's see. Someone wrote in the chat box, can you please share a list of the books that you mentioned?
Yes. Marry Him by Lori Gottlieb. We'll put it in the, we'll put this on YouTube. You'll all get a copy, and I'll put it in the comments section so you'll get it there.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now,
Somebody
does
has a question?
anyone have a question for Lori? You could either put it in the chat box, or you can raise your hand, or you can call out. Don't be shy.
Looks like Gail had a comment. She said she read the first book that I mentioned. She didn't think it was so enlightening or helpful. Okay, it's very possible it didn't speak to you. I would say
maybe
yes.
the next one, but maybe the next books will speak to her, right?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Keith has a question, I see.
What are your thoughts on single people having children on their own via IVF, a surrogate, or the like? What age, if not, okay, if so, what age might you think they should start considering it? Or after how many years of attempting to date? Or general thoughts on singles having children of their own if they're not able to find the right person?
Wow, I'd say that's really an individual question. I just tried to set up, I have a 50-plus-year-old man I'm trying to set up right now with a woman, with any woman in her 40s who would consider egg surrogacy or IVF. And I just contacted a potential match for him. And she said, oh, I just had a baby on my own. I need a break. So I am seeing a lot of women in their 40s having babies on their own. I think it's very brave. I think it's hard to, every woman that I've talked to who's had a baby on her own, and I've talked to a few, they're really tired. They're really, really tired. I know so many men who really do want to have kids later in life. And I wish I could get the women in their 40s and the guys in their 50s together, which is what I'm really spending a lot of time with doing. But I'd say it's a real individual thing. And do I approve? I don't think it's for, me to approve or not. I think it's very brave. We live in what's really making a shidduch crisis now that we didn't have 100 years ago is a woman needed a man 100 years ago, and women still need a man, but they don't know it. They don't feel it. They don't have to because they're supporting themselves. And Western culture has done such a number on our brains that the traditional role of a woman to be a support and to be an Ezer Kenegdo and to be a helpmate, it's so not Western. And I actually took a marriage course that helped me improve my marriage and helped me learn how to be a better wife. And it really made a difference. And my teacher's motto was, if you change yourself, you change your marriage. And it's really true. So women these days and men these days, the reason we have so much divorce is because I'm not going to change unless you change. And honestly, if one person changes, the other person changes. So I'd like to see more people get married. And one Pesach, just last Pesach, I was with Rabbi Shmuley Boteach, who wrote Kosher Sex. And he asked the audience, how many of you need a man? Only 2 women raised their hand. That's what's really making the older shidduch. That's what's making the crisis, I think. Why we're not getting remarried, why we're not getting married later in life, because women are very independent. And the Chafetz Chaim's mother got remarried because there was one guy to get married to. And that's another story, but people got married because they were in a little village and they, they had to survive. So they made a match. They made the best match they could.
I see there's a question from Aaron Unger. He wrote, if there is no flow in contact, very nice people so far clicked, should we be more patient?
Oh, I love that question. In this book, How to Not Die Alone, she said one of her chapters is 4-letter word, the spark. She doesn't believe in the spark. She believes in putting time in, spending time with the person and trying to create the spark. And one rabbi in Muncie told me, he was a great Shadchan. He said, if you could just lock 30 singles into a room over Shabbos, you know, you'd come out with 10 engagements. People need time to get to know each other. They really just have to spend time with each other. And I think you can create a spark if you spend enough time and you work on it. If you really admire the person, the most important thing a man needs from a woman is respect. This is what research shows. The most important thing a woman needs from a man is love. Now, of course, she needs respect too, but these are the two things that each side is looking for, respect and love. So I believe you can create a spark if you spend enough time together and you try. And also, Erin, I believe for older singles, companionship is what you really, really, really want. If you can find somebody who's a good companion for you, go for it. If you like being with them, go for it. I think it's more important than the spark.
Okay, we have some more questions. Let's see what it says here. I read the case for settling for Mr. Good Enough based on your recommendation. Excellent. I learned so much. This is from Frummy Silver to everyone.
Thank you, Frummy. I'm glad you liked it because Frummy is a very good matchmaker in Canada, and everything we matchmakers learn help us help our singles.
Aaron Unger says to everyone, since this is on video, my next question, if you can ask without my name. Oops, sorry.
All right, Aaron, we'll mix it up. We'll ask the next questions without names.
Oops.
If we have any more questions.
I don't see any more, but let me double check and see. Sorry about that. Let's see.
Maybe you want to figure out a way, Aaron, to ask your question that, you know what, we'll take your question off camera. So if we're done, we'll stop recording. And unless anybody else has a question. How about a comment?
I have a question.
Okay.
Okay, this is an interesting question. In my time, because I'm in the 50s myself, when we were all dating, and a very, religious person, Orthodox person, and my mom was very religious, we had a time frame. Once we hit 19, like the pressure was on to get married. And I got married at 25, and that was, wow, you were like an old maid getting married at 25. But in my time, and which was probably your time too, we didn't have cell phones or the internet or anything like that. So people basically, we were old school and we had more time to communicate with each other. Do you feel that the internet, cell phones really interferes with the dating process? And now people feel like, oh, I can get married so much later now. I could just talk to her on the phone via chatting. But back in the day, you couldn't do that. You had to go face to face. And I felt that was more personal. Question is, was it better back then? And definitely, was it more personal? And today's world, even though the internet is good, does that interfere with the dating process?
Right. So the internet has helped us and hurt us, of course. I was at a restaurant in LA a few months ago, and I saw a man and woman out to dinner, and they're both looking down at their cell phones. They're not even talking to each other. It was so sad, so sad. I think the biggest problem is too much choice in the Orthodox world for the men. For the women, it's very difficult for observant women. Men have so many choices. Even men that you wouldn't expect would have so many choices, They don't stop getting suggestions. These are the younger men. The women, they're waiting, they're looking. And we have a lot of educated, really smart women who aren't finding the religious guys who are on their level. So that's hurting as well. Okay, so the internet. A lot of people, I think there's too much choice. I think there's just too much choice out there in our day, right? So my girlfriend mentioned a guy and I said, oh, he sounds good. I'd like to meet him, right? And usually you were set up by your friends, but you didn't know who was living in the next state, much less the next town. So it was really your circle. It was people who knew you. And that was, you also didn't have high expectations. I think men see so many beautiful women on the internet, but an average looking woman just doesn't excite them. And this is why why we're hurting so much, I think. And people aren't prepared for people who aren't perfect, because none of us are perfect. And people want someone who has A, B, C, D, and E, and F. And if they only get A, B, C, D, they're not happy. Or if they get D, E, and F, they're not happy. In fact, I just started I've done this before, but I just offered this on my website, a top 10 coaching clarity session based on what's in Shidduch Secrets. And it's where the client writes down everything they want in a person. And then I get together with them and we start whittling the list and we figure out what are wants and what are needs, because we want tall, dark, and handsome. But do we need that? What we really might need is a guy who will take out the garbage and get the baby at 3 o'clock in the morning. That's what we need. So there's really differences. I needed someone who would help me grow as a person, who would help me refine my personality and my mitos. That's what I needed. That's what I got. I got tall, dark, and handsome too, but like
Wonderful.
that was just luck of the draw.
Wonderful. All right, in the chat, we're back to the chat. Someone wrote, I'm not going to mention names because it didn't say not to mention name, but we're still not going to mention name. Okay, so thank you so much for your time suggestions. Thank you so much. I don't see any more questions, so if anyone else wants to drop a question in the chat box, we won't give the name out. So let us know. If not, I can ask her a million questions. I got so many questions to ask. Yeah, but I want to give someone else a chance, so don't be shy. Anyone? Let's check that again. Let's see.
I have a question.
Wonderful. What is your question?
I hope this doesn't sound weird, but how much does it cost to hire you to find someone on average?
That's something I don't really want to talk about on a video.
Okay.
But I do have some prices on my website, actually, Shadchan.com. And I have different services that I offer. But when I take a private client, that's, something I work with them privately. And I'm not even taking private clients right now because I'm filled up, but I have a waiting list. But I love doing one-offs, like a one coaching session or the top 10 list. I love dating coaching. I love making a difference in people's lives and using what I've learned over the years to help people get clarity. I think that's like the most exciting thing.
Thank you.
All right, I don't see anything else in the chat box. Would anyone else like to either call out or put something in the chat box? Anyone else?
Why don't you ask me your question, Sylvia?
Okay, I have a million questions. Okay, since no one else is going to ask a question. Okay, so basically, my question is this. Do you feel that people used to get married, at least in my time, in your time, much younger, and then people are getting married now much older than they used to? And why do you think that's happening? not just because of the phones. And also another second part of the question I wanted to really ask you is, if a woman is a professional like yourself, or let's say it be a professional like being a lawyer or a doctor, do you feel that it is harder for them to get a man now for some reason, because whatever that reason might be? I don't know.
I'm so glad you asked that, Sylvia. Okay. First part, the younger, the more religious are still getting married younger. They're still getting married in their 20s, if possible, if possible. People are getting married young in the Orthodox world. All my 3 boys were married by the age of 27, I think 27. 2 of them were married on the younger side of 25. One of my kids went out with 75 girls. One of them went out with maybe 5 or 6, and one of them just went out with 2 or 3. So yeah, the Orthodox kids get married younger if possible. And the women who are professionals, doctors and lawyers in particular, have a really, I've seen a harder time getting married, because what I said before, a woman has to look up to the guy to marry him, but she doesn't only have to look up to him because he's a lawyer or a doctor. If he's an artist, he does sculpture, he's a teacher who's passionate about what he does, or a rabbi, and she can respect who he is, it's great. If she finds what to respect in him, they can make it. But they're not accustomed. A lot of people are not accustomed to looking for what they can respect in somebody else. So I think that's something where people need their eyes opened. But I think it's really hard for them. It's really hard. Like, how does a guy who's a 3rd grade secular teacher impress the doctor? It's hard. It's hard. If he's Torah scholar, she wants a Torah scholar, and that's what he spends all of his time, his extra time doing. Could work. People have to be open to possibilities and find what the greatness in the other person is and focus on that.
Okay, once again, I can ask her a million questions because they keep flowing in my head. But does anyone else have a question for Lori? I mean, now's your chance. Anyone?
How about they put their name in the chat box? I can see the chat box, and you can keep asking Sylvia. We've got another 10 minutes, I think.
Got another 10 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Check the chat box again.
I can see the chat box, Sylvia.
Oh, you can see it too. Okay, so in the interim, I'm going to ask you a question that I have, because I have a lot. Do you feel that it's harder, especially in the Jewish religious world, for a woman that is divorced to find their next husband? And second question is, if it's okay to ask, I know in the religious world before, the ultra Orthodox, women didn't get divorced. I think for some reason now, it's a little more, it's a dangerous question. It's a little more acceptable. And why would that be? The only reason I ask this question, because I've been seeing things in my own community going on, and I'm a little puzzled by that, to be honest with you.
Okay, so marriage is really hard for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Hashem makes it that way for us. You know, it's they call it, why is it called Kriya? You know, Hashem is making matches as hard as Kriyas Yam Suf, the splitting of the Red Sea. Why do they use that terminology for matches? Because Kriya means tearing. When you get married, you tear off little pieces of yourself so you fit together with the other person. And people these days, I was talking with Kim Solomon, my matchmaker colleague. She told me, I told this woman, don't get divorced. You've got a good guy. People have unrealistic expectations of what their spouse should be. And this woman is not remarried. She had a nice guy, but I don't know what went on behind closed doors. But a lot of times people they don't put the work that's necessary into it. And I think people divorce too easily. One of my favorite books is by one of my neighbors, Diane Medved. I think it's called Don't Divorce. And she goes through all the reasons why people should not get divorced. You might want to interview her. She's just a lovely person. She's Michael Medved's wife. And then I think one of the things, let me
Do you have the book? Do you have the book to show?
No, I don't have her book on hand, but I have read it.
What is it called again? Don't
I
Divorce?
think it's called Don't Divorce, but it's Diane Medved.
Diane
It's a classic. It's an older book.
Medved.
But this book, I think, can help marriages last. And it's called, I told you should actually find this author and another Jewish author.
Oh, Marriage Meetings. Oh, wow. We have to write this all down. We have to write this down.
Marriage Meetings for Lasting Love. I think if people follow this book, they could have tremendously good marriages. I buy this for all the couples that I match up.
Wow.
And some of my people read it before they get married. It's 30 minutes a week to the relationship you've always wanted. It teaches you how to have marriage meetings, because what is marriage? It's a series of decision-making. You have to learn to communicate. And this book has a beautiful way to communicate, have these meetings once a week, say what you like about the person that week, like celebrate it, plan a date for the week, and then go through what are the chores we have to split up this week. And then what things were we unhappy about with each other this week, and what can we do about that? And you take it, instead of, oh, I'm so upset with you, you're thinking, I'm just so upset with him for this right now, but I'm going to save it for the marriage meeting. You
love it. I love it.
You can save it, and you can bring things up at the right time. If people did that, their marriages would last longer. So I think we see a lot of divorce because we have less of attention span than we used to. We want things to be perfect faster. We are so used to getting what we want the next day by Amazon. Now I can get things from Amazon within hours. We don't have the capacity, I think, for patience. And that's one of the needles I learned from being married is patience. That's what I've learned. Definitely being a matchmaker is patience, because relationships take a lot of time. So I have to, is this one going to work out? Is it not going to work out? It takes patience and a lot of work. It hurts me, all the divorces out there. It really hurts. It hurts to see.
It's hard to see. So you said Marriage Meetings by, I'm sorry, one more time, because I want to read this book. You're giving a lot of good advice.
Marsha Naomi Berger.
Marsha Naomi Berger. Marsha.
I can give you her email.
Great. I thank you for all this. This is amazing. I mean, this is amazing advice. I mean, wonderful. I'm so pleased to do the Zoom with you. I think we have some more questions. Let me look in the chat box. Can you give some basic information for long distance dating, because there are so many long distance matches? It's helpful to know how many conversations before someone goes to visit the person. How many conversations should you have before someone goes to visit the person?
Okay.
Excellent.
So again, I have the video available on YouTube, long distance dating that I made with Kim Solomon. And I do have a PDF. You can contact me for the cheat sheet PDF. But I like to say about 3 conversations, 3 Zoom conversations. There has to be excitement, I believe, on both sides. Kim thinks there only has to be excitement on one side. I think there should be excitement on both sides. That's what makes it fun to watch the video, because Kim and I don't agree on everything in long distance dating. But most of my matches have been long distance matches. So, each one is unique. I just helped a guy from my area, from my shul. He was brand new to dating. And these are the kind of people I love to help, the people who are brand new to the Shidduch world, like, what do I do? And I help them with their profile. I help them know where to put their profile. I help them sort through, suggestions. And he put his profile on Shalom Bladder, and somebody picked it up there and matched him with a girl. This is like within a week. And they had a great phone conversation, then they had a couple of Zooms, and then he made plans to get on a plane and fly there. And it's going really good. And she'll fly to him next. So there's all sorts of questions. Does he pay for her ticket? What should she pay for? All these things are helpful to have a coach with you along for the ride. If the people can work it out themselves, it's fabulous, because I believe the more the two people communicate, the better, because again, marriage is a series of decisions that you're going to make together. So if people can work this out themselves, but sometimes it's very awkward, you're just getting to know each other and you're going to discuss finances, who's going to pay for what. So it's helpful to have a coach on the side when people do that. So I'm all for long distance dating. It can really work out. I'll give you the clue at the end. I moved to Seattle for 3 months to date my husband after we had dated from October to April, just with me flying in for a few days each time. So I made arrangements. I said, do you want me to come for the summer so we can date real life, not fantasy dating, summer camp dating where, I'm in town. I have no obligations. All I'm doing is waiting around for a date with him. You should hear some of my stories about my pursuit of my husband. I
might call you on that.
So our story is a great story. So he says, well, I invited my girlfriend in Israel to come for the summer. So I'm waiting to hear from her. I said, okay. And my dad told me, Lori, you're not number 2 in all the girls Seth's gone out with. You're number, 400. You've got as good of a chance as she does. So anyway, she didn't come for the summer. I came for the summer and we were engaged by the end of the summer. But I do believe, and this is the advice I gave to the gal who went to England. I said, you've got to get over there and spend time. So she actually quit her job. She spent 3 weeks over there. I told her to volunteer, make yourself a life there, do something, get a temporary job, so that you date normally at the end of the day, on the weekends, on Shabbos, that you get a feeling of what it's like to live in the other person's community. And I think that's really important. I had one couple from Google in San Jose and Seattle, Amazon, and they were in their 30s dating, and they got engaged, did not know where they were going to live in Seattle or San Jose. It did turn out that they moved to Seattle, but they got engaged without knowing, which I thought was odd, but worked out.
Amazing. That's amazing. Wow, you got me hooked. I'm hooked. I have to hear more stories. Wonderful. I must tell you, I thank you for all this fantastic information, these wonderful recommendations on these wonderful books, because I'm going to read them too. It's excellent. And this is just giving us free advice. I mean, my God, thank you. You're wonderful. Oh, I see another question. If there is a misunderstanding with the picture and profile level of observance, what is the best method to communicate this?
Does this person want to break up with them based on the not knowing the observance level? One of my books talks about bait and switch. Okay, I don't know if this is the case, but bait and switch is you're showing a picture of you from 10 years ago, and the person says yes to you based on your picture, and they meet you and you look nothing like your picture. Try to avoid that, people. Be honest in your picture. Get the best pictures that money can buy, but be honest. I don't know if that is really going to this question. You want to read it again? I want to make sure we got it.
Absolutely. I will do so. Let's do that again. I will read it very carefully. Okay. If there is a misunderstanding with the picture and profile on level of observance, what is the best method to communicate this? He said regular profile before any communication. Okay. So again, if there's a misunderstanding with the regular profile, okay, so he said, is there a misunderstanding with the picture and regular profile on level of observance? What is the best method to communicate this?
I'm just guessing this person, let's just say that the person they're set up with is not really Shomer Shabbos and you're Shomer Shabbos, and you find out, you know, your Shomer Shabbos is not my Shomer Shabbos, you know, I don't think we're a match. You can just tell them. I don't know, I don't really understand the question, but that's what I'm thinking is, you know, I accepted the match based on what I read about you and saw your picture, but you're not who I thought you were, so I don't really think this is a match. And you let them know that. All right, maybe we could take questions off camera now. Why don't we end the recording? And,
Okay. Thank you everyone for joining us. Books and More with Jewish Ladies with Lori Young, Seattle Shadchan. We're gonna have this recorded and posted in my book club as well as on her site. So all this wonderful information she's gonna put in the comment section. If anyone has any questions for her, you can put in the comment section as well. And thank you everyone who is going to view this, and thank you to everyone who has joined tonight. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you most of all, Lori, for all your wonderful information. Fantastic, fantastic advice. Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
I really appreciate the opportunity, Sylvia, because I wanted to share these books with people for so long, and you made it possible. So I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, and good night, everyone.